I wore my good dress to go drinking and it's stuck in the... So today we're going to be doing a couple changes to the 350 and repairing a couple things. Bought a cooling gauge from Glow Shift, which I have Glow Shift gauges in my truck. I like Glow Shift. They multiple colors. They are accurate as far as I have experience with them. I put that off because obviously I have to cut my hosing, put in a bridge piece with the sensor that goes in there. I'm sure there's a couple other ways to do it. You could probably put it inside the radiator drain plug, but then you got to match threads and just, I don't know. I'd rather just do it this way. Plus, I know it's up on top of the motor. It's not going to drag down the cables and anything like that. The idea behind today would be to cut that hose, install that bridge, get the sensor and everything hooked up, potentially run some wires. I don't know. We'll see if we can get the gauge set up to where I could see if it's working or not. I also got in, finally, my low profile seat brackets for my NRG racing seat. That's gonna be our goal, is to install that bracket and install these gauges. And I think that might be it for right now. So that's what we're doing today. All right, so I have the bridge that I got from Glow Shift that will house my sensor. So we're going to cut the radiator hose to install it. It's pretty simple. There's a pretty decent video on YouTube on how to do this, so I'm not going to show you how to do it. But basically, we're going to cut this in half, put the bridge in between, put the sensor in there, run a wire to the gauge, see if it works. It is metal. It's actually pretty strong. Stainless steel, probably. But 38 millimeter is what the Glow Shift plug is. So, there you go. But this feels really sturdy, really strong, if you're wondering. It's not plastic. I thought it was going to be plastic. It's not plastic, it's metal. It's decent metal.
If I could take you up in boom boom bosh, boom boom, tell me I'm the only one that you love. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Life could be a dream. Plans would come true. Spend my whole life loving you. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Take you up in boom boom bosh, boom boom, tell me I'm the only one that you love. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Life could be a dream. Plans would come true. Spend my whole life loving you. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. If I could take you up in boom boom bosh, boom boom, tell me I'm...
Alright, so we're pretty much there. I was running into the same issue again like I did the last time, where I couldn't get the thermostat to open up. So what I had to do, I jacked the car up even higher, because you want to get your radiator higher than the actual cooling system itself, so the air comes forward. At least that's my experience. So you do that. Then what I was doing is carefully, because it will explode on you, I would pop that bleeder valve in there and let a little bit of air out, and then screw it back in real quick. This was overflowing and boiling like it normally did the last time. So I came in here, I had to rev up the accelerator because the temperature would only sit about where it is right now. So I couldn't get it high enough, so I sat here and revved up the motor for a little while, got the temperature to go up. This started going batshit crazy like it normally does. So I took if you have one like mine, I ended up having to take this lid and lay it on here like that so the splashing wouldn't come out. After about 20 seconds of that, thermostat opened up, coolant flushed through, sucked it in, put another half jug in. Right now we're just sitting, and I'm gonna let it cycle about 10 times just to make sure I get all these little air bubbles. I wanna get all these little air bubbles out. But for the most part, it's bled, and it's really just gonna do all the work for me now at this point. So now that I'm done with that, I can actually focus on things that I want to, like getting my seat brackets in and things like that. If you're trying to bleed the 350 and you're having problems with it, I've done it twice now. It's given me a pain in the ass twice. So just keep at it, keep doing it, you'll get it. All right, so this is about the 5th or 6th fan cycle. This should kick on, we'll run, we'll do this thing. This is about the 5th or 6th, and I haven't seen any air bubbles come up, so I'm pretty happy with that. So at this point, what I'm gonna do is kill the car. Oh, yeah, you're blowing hot air too. That's another thing. If you're blowing hot air and your heater's working, then you know that your cooling system is on the right path there. That's one of your key indicators. What I'm gonna do is, this is the harness that goes to the triple gauge cluster for the Z. There's gotta be a ground in here. There's a black wire, I assume that's the ground. I'm gonna try and use that as the ground. There's got to be a hot here off the ignition switch, and I'm going to have to figure out which one that is. So I'm going to voltmeter that out and see if I can't figure out which one is getting hot when the ignition comes on. And that's where my ignition source power is going to come from for the gauge. Alright, so this is our signal wire. This is my signal wire. I'm going to solder the two ends together.
Oh, life ain't a ding dong. If I could take you up in boom 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 boom, tell me I'm the only one that you know. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Life could be a dream. Ain't a ding dong. Plans would come true. Ain't a ding dong. Spend my whole life loving you. Life could be a dream, sweetheart.
So if you're looking to wire up gauges inside of your 350Z in their aftermarket, and you're looking for an ignition source and a power source, a constant 12 volt and a ground source, things of that sort, you could piggyback them off of the harness that comes off of your triple gauge on top of your dash. Now, you could piggyback them, you could daisy chain them, however you want to do it. I'm actually deleting out the gauges altogether and running 3 of my own aftermarket gauges that I want instead. So I cut the entire harness. In the harness, there's several wires in here, so I tested out with a voltmeter where my sources were going to be. My green and yellow, so green wire with a yellow pinstripe, is going to be your ignition source. So this, when the car is off, has no power. When the car is turned on, you get 12 volts down the wire. Red and white is your constant 12 volt power when the car is on. When the car is off, doesn't matter. You constantly have 12 volts there. Are there other ones in here that could be constant power and switch 12 volt sources? Sure. But these are the ones that I found. These are the ones I needed. So I'm not using any of the other wires. I don't care. But if you're looking, that's a good starting point. You could use those. Now, one thing that was weird about my glow shift gauge is it calls for one wire to have constant 12 volts and the other wire to have a switched ignition 12 volts and run them separately like that. That would be the red and the yellow wire. When I wired those up that way and I had them like that, it was weird. The gauge went solid red, and then I couldn't do anything, it wouldn't read anything, it wouldn't work. I'm not sure why exactly that was. So what I ended up doing is I just wired my ignition source and my switch source to the ignition switch 12 volts coming off of the green and yellow wire. It doesn't make a difference as far as function for the gauge. I don't know if maybe it remembers colors and things like that because they are color changing gauges. But it doesn't hurt anything, so that's how I ended up changing mine. So I have yellow and red, ran to the ignition source. I have my black wire running from ground. Ground is ground. And then I have my signal wire coming off the sensor for my cooling temperature gauge, and that runs into the green wire here. I believe the orange wire is the only one that's left, and I think the orange wire is for, I think it said headlamps, which I assume would mean if I wanted to, I could wire it in with my headlights, and then gauges are on, gauges are off, gauges are on, gauges are off.
take you up in boom, 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 boom. Tell me I'm the only one that you love. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Oh, 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 life could be a dream.
This is way low, pro. Look how low that sits. That's insane. And what's really cool, look at the way they built this bracket. It goes right up over that support knuckle, whatever that fucking thing is. That guy. I'm gonna have to grind it down, which is nice. It's gonna be much, much lower. It's lower by, Jesus, 3 inches or so. This is gonna be great. Cool. Whew. Okay, seat is mounted. Still have a little bit of an issue with it. It's not balanced. I used the exact same mounting holes on both sides, but for some reason, it sits up higher on the seatbelt side, but not in the front. So like the front is level, and then this sits like this. So I gotta maybe drop that down a hole. Check the balance on these. I mean, we're close. We're close. This is also stripped, so I have to drill this out and actually run a bolt underneath the chassis or the body or whatever, and have that as my 4th mounting point. Other than that, it's sweet. It moves, it works, it functions. I can actually touch the pedals now. I can slide it and adjust it for whoever wants to be in it. It's fantastic.
Yeah.